Yes, g'day. Shelter FootyCast live from BackChat Studios. That's the Southern River Band. I think we can get Skeet Mark Reddings down to a live show with Southern River Boys. They're touring at the moment, but we'll get down to check them out. Welcome to the Shelter FootyCast. G'day, Mark Reddings. How are you, mate?
Hello, Scully. Really good. Nice to be here. Dressing similar to you, which is nice.
You're a bit casual.
Yeah, a bit casual this morning.
That's similar to me, is it?
Well, it's cash. It's probably not as funky. You've got that sort of designer grunge look about you, whatever that's called. Anyway, I love it. I love you, and I love this podcast. So thanks to Shelter. Bit to talk about. So much footy, and what a huge match tonight. What a huge match last night. Nick Kyrgios, our good old mate, he's through to the semis. Well played.
I was up watching. I know this is a footy podcast, but I watched it. We're just discussing off air. I like Nick Kyrgios is how he is. I'll watch him. Some people are, I'm not going to watch him, not going to cheer from him. Do you accept him? I think he's a dickhead, and I just accept that he's a dickhead.
He's a knucklehead, no question. He came out this morning and said that the match between he and Rafael Nadal, who's got a bit of a stomach problem, should be the most watched in tennis history, essentially. I'm thinking
the greatest of all time.
He's never heard of John McEnroe and Bjorn Borg. Anyway, I like that. But I still think he's a knucklehead, and I'll be barracking for Nadal against him.
Really?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Because it doesn't worry me. It's like, if he wins or loses, doesn't affect. It's not like I'm invested in Nick Kyrgios. No. He's not
He's representing Australia.
Well, he doesn't think he is. He just thinks he's representing the Air Jordans.
Very good. This is a West Australian themed podcast. If you haven't listened to us before, we do a preview, a review, chat about West Coast Freo, about all the other games as well. We'll get into a bit of an argument at the end of the show, which will be fun, Skeet. If you want to listen to us, you can listen to us on YouTube. You can watch us there. You can have a look at BackChat or Shelter FootyCast. Find us on socials, Shelter FootyCast, or send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au, and it is all brought to you by Shelter, born and brewed in Busselton. Now, let's get into it. Some big moments of the round. Eric Hipwood, he got off during the week for a an alleged deliberate push, found not guilty into an umpire. How did you see that situation?
I think I said the other day, I'm surprised that Michael Christian, the match review officer, didn't deal with this at the time, because it ended up being a fine.
Yes.
So why couldn't he have come to that conclusion? Why did it have to go to the tribunal? I don't understand the process unless he didn't think he knew what it landed under.
There was certainly I know probably you and I landed the same area, but there was certainly a decent string of the media that felt like this should have been a suspension. So I know you and I might have a level head on it all, but there was a fair amount of people that thought you can't do that. You can't put people in harm's way with the umpire. The way I saw it was how it was adjudicated, that it was not a football moment, but it was certainly not pre-planned, and it was an instant in time that maybe he didn't expect the umpire to be there, and then he ended up hitting the umpire and he got a mark. Him running on and getting the mark and kicking the goal, I don't know if that made it worse or better, but I think it's a good thing he moves on. As broken here on Monday, didn't realise it was quite a breaking story, but West Coast came out and confirmed this during the week. Dom Sheed, season done. But we spoke about this on Monday.
Yeah, with it's stress.
Yeah.
Sort of elements.
Do you remember me telling you about this on Monday?
Yeah, I do.
Don't worry, I got the finger on the pulse somewhere there.
Yeah, well, you probably gave him a call. You were his premiership teammate. If you can't get the mail, no one can.
Yeah, I don't know how I got that. Stuart Dew gets an extended deal at the Gold Coast Suns. This is the biggest issue of the week, I think. 2024, he signs on to. It seems like 6 weeks ago, he'd lost his job.
Yeah.
And Clarkson was going up there.
Well, the only name that came into the frame was Clarkson. So if Alistair Clarkson wasn't going to coach them, then he was going to. But also, the change in form, or the improvement in form, has been the saving grace for Stuart Dew. He might have been given an extension irrespective. He's well liked by the players.
Yep.
I think they've got the bones. We keep saying this. They've got the bones for a final 8 side. So I'm really happy for him. I think it's great. And, it shows a bit of solidarity with the group, because Gold Coast seems to be such a transient place as a footy club in terms of who they have and who they don't. And they're worried about keeping King, and they lost May, they lost Lynch. So I think this is nice. It just keeps equilibrium for the next, 2 years after this one. And I think it's a good move. Oh, you mentioned this is the biggest story. I think the biggest question in footy is who replaces David Noble, because there's no way he's going to be coaching next year at North, is it?
Yeah, I did want to speak about the coaching landscape in general off the back of that, because I think it's great that they've shown some faith in Stewie Dew. Saw Cochrane speak on TV last night. He's the CEO or president, one of those Gold Coast. And he spoke of, just like players, you need 80 to 100 games in the system as a coach to really get what you're doing in there. It's a different landscape to anywhere else. You can't get experience. You can get experience coaching, but not at AFL level. So this will be his 4th, 5th season. He's umpired, coached 80 to 100 games. This is where he starts to really come into his own. And if you go and bring in another senior coach and your whole list,
start again.
It's another 3 years. So I think it's a great move by Gold Coast. And flipping into North Melbourne, David Noble. I don't like putting the red cross on people, but it seems like that's done. Clarkson's not going to be the guy to replace him.
No,
absolutely not.
No, I mean Clarko, that's not his. No. But the question is, who? And someone will put their hand up. Who wants that list? Who wants that club to be under your command as coach? I can't see. I mean, obviously an assistant coach will put their hand up, and because they want the opportunity. But like if you're Dean Cox, for instance, at Sydney,
nah.
I mean, there's just so many red flags with that club as opposed to the Giants, where if Clarko's going to go anywhere, surely that's the place where they've got some real talent at their disposal, and Martin, if they might keep the gig if they keep winning matches. So that's the fascination of the coaching landscape. But yeah, Essendon, Matthew Lloyd coming out overnight and questioning the Ben Rutten situation.
Well, that's fair, I think.
Yeah, it is. And obviously Mark McVeigh is only a temporary or caretaker coach at this stage. So there's 3 clubs that I think will have question marks going into the off-season. And look, I assume North will keep David Noble till the end of the year.
Yeah.
Although come around 17, 18, who knows?
I wonder if the Tasmanian situation, which is on Gil McLaughlin's list of things he wants settled before he leaves at the end of the year, I wonder if the Tassie situation changes anything for anyone. Because if that club does happen to go into that Tasmanian solution, and it is going to be a club that plays games in Tassie, maybe that is more attractive, no matter the list.
Like a Brisbane Lions Fitzroy merger type thing.
and maybe they do get some compensation at the draft, and maybe it turns into a really positive situation. You're building something from the ground up in Tasmania. So there'd be coaches keeping their eye on that. Right at this moment, if that stays in Melbourne, that football club, no one wants to coach them, I'll tell you that right now.
And just remember, Tasmania is still, 2-3 years away?
Yeah,
it is. And probably the new broadcast rights, which is the other part of Gil's legacy that he wants to make sure that's got a nice imprint on what he's done financially.
And a nice little bow tied on top. Like, there you go. Whoever takes over. Not much for you to do. We've got a Tassie team on the way. We've got the broadcast
AFLW, broadcast, everything in place.
Well, what's the new CEO going to do? They're just going to come in and twiddle their thumbs?
Just keep the rules the same for maybe 12 months. That'd be nice.
Let's hope Hocking doesn't get the gig as CEO then, because that could be in trouble. All right, let's get into a bit of a West Coast and Fremantle preview. Big game for the Fremantle Dockers over here at home. St Kilda. No, that's a lie. In Melbourne. At least I pulled myself up at Marvel Stadium. Yes. I wasn't even reading. I was going off in my head. That's the issue. My mind.
Don't blame Charlie for this one. He's on the money, buddy.
Fremantle St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. I was thinking of the game earlier this season where Fremantle, of course, lost to St Kilda here at Optus Stadium. This is a big game for both clubs, but given we're in here in Western Australia, I think this isn't a make or break one for Freo, but if they can win, top 4 seems very, very achievable. It's almost a lock. I don't like saying lock, but I think it's a lock if they win this game.
How can it be a lock if they win and Carlton both win, for instance, this weekend?
It just puts them
the same.
It's an 8-game turnaround, an 8-point turnaround for them. If they lose, it separates themselves from that top 4. So it's probably less about winning and locking and more about if they lose, top 4 becomes harder, clearly.
Yep. I agree.
And
it's a huge game.
And it's a big game.
And St Kilda at Marvel on a Saturday night, if they produce anything like they did against Carlton, they were pretty good. Look, the energy levels were up. We spoke to Jack Sinclair on radio last night, 37 touches. He said, look, as soon as that ball bounced, we knew we were on, essentially.
Would have been nice to let the rest of us know
beforehand
about being on, because they haven't looked on.
They've been very sketchy, haven't they? But no, if they are... That's where I'm a bit worried for Fremantle about the Saturday night at Marvel. They play good footy there. That's where they play their best footy, in fact.
St Kilda.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No question. Matt Taberner, I don't think he'll play. You think, what do you reckon?
Don't think so. They can't keep doing his hamstring.
If you're subbed out during a game, I can't see you playing next week unless they found that it's just...
If he was a really durable player that has never had a hammy, then you'd go him. You go, okay, I think we can get him up, but he hasn't been. He's been injured all year.
And do you play Heath Chapman in the waffle or straight in the AFL?
Waffle for Chapman.
Okay.
And so I know I've been a proponent of getting guys back, but Chapman's a young guy. Been out for six weeks now.
It's a long time.
Last played in round
hamstring.
11. Yeah, round 11. So that's a huge hamstring. It's either been a really big hamstring or he's redone it and we don't know about it, because 6 weeks is, a long time for a hammy. You usually can turn him around in 3 weeks and play in the fourth. He hasn't at all. So I don't think he comes straight back in. Look, I hope he does. Great player, great future for the Freo Dockers. But
they don't really need him with Nathan Wilson coming back in at the moment. So they've got the cover.
Yeah, that's right. So, how do Fremantle win against St Kilda? I agree with you. This is a huge danger game. St Kilda play good footy at Marvel Stadium. I think if either of us pick St Kilda, Freo will probably win. The Dockers, to beat them, they need to put an enormous amount of pressure on St Kilda, because even though St Kilda play well last week, mentally, they know they've been an inconsistent team. And, okay, so you speak to Jack Sinclair, who's had an all-time year. He'll be All-Australian halfback flank. We knew that we're on when we're out. That they will know when they're not on too. So if Fremantle can come out and put some pressure on them, that's when the mental demons start coming to you as a player, when you've been inconsistent. And so that's what Freo need to do. And when Freo have played poorly, they haven't put the pressure on the opposition. That's pretty much what
basic. Very basic for them.
That's what dictates their performance. If they put the pressure on the opposition, they play the way they play. They're not going to be beaten by many. But if they can't put the pressure on, like we saw against Carlton, if you remember, had a lot of footy inside their forward line, but couldn't keep it in there, and then Carlton transitioned through it too easily. Fremantle need to bring pressure. And so that's when, as an AFL side, it gets hard, because all Justin Longmuir knows is bring pressure, you win. But you need to string out a week of preparation, and what are you telling the group? And all he'll be saying is bring your pressure, but you need to do it still.
Yeah, and the forward 50 pressure, I think Griffin Logue's important to that. We saw it last week. And importantly for St Kilda, Hunter Clark, that was a nasty collision.
Yeah.
He's broken nose, or certainly there's some damage to the nose. Dougal Howard. Yeah. Now, because we're not sure about Taberner, Lob has been he has to be the man after kicking 5.
Yeah.
You just wonder whether Saints might be stretched a bit down back.
Well, he's been an important player for them. He's been this might be a bit of a Jared Witts for you, but he's been fighting for All-Australian fullback, Dougal Howard. He's been outstanding.
He's in the squad as we speak?
I would say he'd be pretty close to it, yeah. Okay. He's been outstanding. So to lose a player like that, of that calibre, they do have some replacements, but I think that's a big loss for them. Who are we picking?
I've actually selected Fremantle here.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. First, last time I selected Fremantle away from home was against the Gold Coast Suns, and we know what happened there. So I'm a bit concerned for Dockers supporters, but I just think they can beat St Kilda because, as you say, the St Kilda inconsistency. Now, that's only just it's a gut feel.
That could mean that Dockers lose by 10.
Exactly.
Or they could smash them.
And you?
I'm going to go Dockers. Yeah, I did want to take you on with this one, but I think, having talked through it, St Kilda just too erratic for mine, and I like the Dockers. So the Dockers go up and win that. We both pick Fremantle. West Coast v Carlton Sunday at Optus Stadium. A big game for Carlton, not so much West Coast. They're going to go into every game for the rest of the year, West Coast.
Party poopers.
Yeah, correct. And nothing to lose, which makes them incredibly dangerous, because what have they got to win? They've got to improve as a side. They've got to get their youth going. They want to send off a champion in Josh Kennedy. They've got some things to play for, but realistically, they're either going to finish second last or fourth last.
But the good thing is, I think what it can do, and people say, you don't need to win because of the drafts and all that. To set up next season, if you go in winning, say, 3 of your last 5 or 5 of your last 8 or whatever it is, that is absolutely a great platform for your summer program. Going, boys, last year was horrendous, but guess what? Once we got our team together, everything in place, we're not going to be that far away. So, I agree. Josh Kennedy certain to come back in and most likely to kick his 700th goal for West Coast this weekend against his former club.
Yeah, he's on 698, so he's got to kick 2 goals. I'd back him in to kick 2 goals. And again, knowing Josh very well, he'll want to kick them against Carlton. I mean, that's the whole thing for his career is, his milestone games. He does his West Coast milestone games. He still acknowledges the games with Carlton, but he will know he started at Carlton clearly, and I think it'll be a nice, full circle moment for him to kick those 700 goals against Carlton. So I think Josh Kennedy in for a big game. As we mentioned off the top, Dom Sheed done for the season. Stress fractures through his feet. They've got a few of those guys now. Oscar Allen's done, Tom Cole done, Dom Sheed done. Just those 3 alone. I mean, they're they're very good players, all three of them. So, other than Oscar, premiership players, Oscar Allen, potentially next captain of the club. So you add them back in at the end of next year, at the start of next year, at the end of this year, it suddenly becomes a increasingly better side.
There's vast improvement in this group. And like, again, I just laughed at people saying the rebuild 5 to 6 years. There's a rebuild of sorts, no question, just given the age of the list. But it can be done. It can really be done without stripping it back to the base. I think they can build along the way with draft selections, maybe a savvy trade. Anyway, that's for next year. I think Jacob Wiedering, interesting. If he plays, that gives Carlton, because their defence, they've been up against it, haven't they?
They haven't had a key backman, basically. And so he missed with an AC joint, so that'll be a big ask as well. He'll be jabbed up to play if you're coming back with an AC. That doesn't just heal overnight, an AC joint. That'll be hanging around. He'd go to Kennedy.
Well, you'd think so. I mean, Darling probably not his natural matchup, is it?
No, it'd be Kennedy. He'd probably play deepest as well.
Yeah.
So which is generally Josh Kennedy. Matty Pavlich came out during the week. A few Freo fans are listening to this podcast. He's come out and said West Coast will beat Carlton. It sounds like a little bit like Will Schofield saying West Coast will beat Geelong. I was quite bullish on West Coast that week, and I wasn't too far off the mark. I actually don't feel as bullish about West Coast this week against the Blues.
Yeah.
Do you?
No, well, I did contemplate that, but I just kept going back to the midfield of Carlton. I think they should have won last week against St Kilda, to be honest with you.
They kicked themselves out of the game.
Their record in WA hasn't been great, so Pav's thoughts might be true. He also might be hoping West Coast does win as well, because it gives Fremantle a bit of a chop out if they, either way against St Kilda. So I understand his mentality there. But look, they are a sneaky chance in every game they play at home from now on, I would thought.
West Coast can match them in the midfield. Natanui played, probably his best game of the year last week, and he continues to build. Tim Kelly putting together a season.
40-2.
Yeah, but he's done that regularly this year. Not 40, but he's up in the high 30s and been the best player for West Coast regularly. So I think they've got the midfield to kind of match them with Huey in there. I mean, he's a good player, isn't he? Tim Kelly, Natanui. The back line for me is the one that's got to really stand up for West Coast. So they'll be without McGovern. I doubt he gets back for much of the year, to be honest. He's pretty well cooked with his internal injuries. So Barras has got to match up on a Mackay. Who goes to Charlie Curnow is the big one for mine, because it may have been an Elliot Yeo, but is it a Rhett Bazzo? Is it a Josh Rotham? Josh Rotham is probably, for mine, that probably a year ago, that was the natural matchup for Josh Rotham, but it seems like they're playing him as a bit of a runner, less of a lockdown now in that system that they're playing. So I don't know who goes to Charlie Curnow, which is dangerous.
It is. The only caveat with all of that, and I agree, Mackay and Curnow, on a normal Sunday would think, oh dear, the rain and the wet weather forecast for the weekend just might neutralise that a fraction.
Yes.
Ball might be on the deck a bit more. So it mightn't be such a... I mean, obviously you'd like to have McGovern out there, but having the wet conditions as they are, I think that possibly neutralises the Carlton tall threats to some degree.
Yes.
Not everything, but to some degree.
Who are we picking? Oh, and I'll be down the boundary with Fox Footy, so it's good to hear that the forecast is rain.
I've got a little bit of sympathy for you.
You've got none. No, you've got none.
I'll be in the 6PR box and just keeping the hands warm and just watching you go about your business and hugging all the players.
Send some oh God, be careful doing that. Send some prayers out for me, won't you? Who are you picking? West Coast or Carlton?
I just think Cripps.
Yeah.
And Co. I mean, Walsh is in really good form. I think Carlton.
I'll be annoyed if West Coast wins, because I'm picking Carlton, and I've been all about West Coast post the bye. I'm picking Carlton, and you watch what'll happen. You just watch nice and carefully. You send a text message down to me on the boundary, and I'm soaked in rain as West Coast beat Carlton.
This match means, put it this way, if you're talking about motivation, this match means so much more to the Blues than it does to West Coast. So it would be an indictment on them. Yeah. And given the outs for West Coast, Carlton, the form line shows they should be winning this. So that's all I'm going on.
That's the Western perspective there. Carlton and Fremantle to win on that. You are on the Shelter FootyCast. Let's get into the rest of the round. Geelong v Melbourne, game of the round this week. This isn't a hard one. This is the game of the round.
Maybe the season.
Yeah, Geelong v Melbourne. I wrote Geelong off at the start of the year. I wrote them
middle of the year.
I wrote them off in the middle of the year. I looked at the schedule. They're sitting second on the ladder against a Melbourne team who I don't think really has been as backwards as some people have thought after losing those 3 games in the middle of the year. They're still the best side, and they add just a couple of good players, Gawn and Jackson, back into the team. So Geelong v Melbourne, how this goes, it's in Geelong. Is that
correct?
It's at Kardinia Park.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So on a Thursday night, they've put a game in Geelong.
Yeah. Well, that'd be a full house, won't it?
Yeah, it will be. But I mean,
you think it should have been Friday night? I'm not sure that the 6-day breaks and all that was happening with that, but yeah, it's a perfect Friday night game, isn't it?
Yeah, I do love a Thursday night game though. So it'll be at Kardinia Park. How's this stat? Melbourne has played the most games at Kardinia Park since 2000, other than Geelong, of course. Collingwood haven't played there since 1999. Does that seem ridiculous?
You were still probably in Geelong then, were you?
Yeah, absolutely I was. 10 years old.
That's extraordinary. Well, it's just crowd-related, isn't it? So, and Melbourne's form there, look, they got belted under Dean Bailey by a cricket score, and that was like just the most embarrassing performance you'll see from Melbourne, essentially.
That's where North Melbourne's at right now.
Yeah, exactly. That being said, last year, and their form against them will stack up pretty well because the famous victory with Max Gawn taking a mark.
Yes.
In the last seconds of the game, Geelong's defenders somehow just left this little gap. Anyway, he kicked the goal and they're on their way to winning a premiership.
Well, that changed the course of the Final Four makeup, that game. I think it put Melbourne to the top of the ladder where they may have been second or third after that. So they'll have great confidence going in. But Geelong playing really good footy. Got to take your hat off to them. It's on the back of their forward line. Most teams, I think, is on the back of their midfield and how their midfield goes about it. Now, Geelong's clearly doing it and getting it in there, but Geelong's forward line with Hawkins, Cameron, and not many people would have said it, Stengel, that three is kicking a lot of goals and making it very difficult for sides to play against them. And does the inclusion of Gawn and Jackson keep it out of Geelong's forward line with some midfield dominance? Is that how this game goes? Because Melbourne's got the best midfield in the comp.
They have. But there's not too many weaknesses with Geelong. I mean, we all say their age and maybe their lack of speed, but their defence, albeit Tom Stewart not there, that's obviously significant.
Yep.
But their forward line you mentioned, their midfield, Paddy Dangerfield comes back, kicked a goal inside 15 seconds against North. So they would have set him for, if not last weekend, certainly this match to be cherry ripe at home. So, yeah, look, the Cats, I'm always loath to pick against them. Joel Selwood comes back after being managed. De Koning I like as a young player.
Yep.
And you mentioned the two bigs for Melbourne. Hopefully this game lives up to the hype and the latter positions, which means it should be a beauty.
Geelong will go close to top if they win this, right? They're a game behind Melbourne right now. I'm not sure where percentage sits, but if Geelong win this, even if they don't go to the top of the ladder, it's the mental side of things. It's the mental win that you can have against a team. Yes, it's at home. Melbourne, like you said, have history at the game, at the ground in Kardinia Park, effectively GMHBA Stadium. So, look, I'm really looking forward to that. Tomlinson comes out. He was the Medi sub. Mitch Brown omitted. Sam Wiedemann omitted. So they're to make way for the talls coming in. Stephen May's been back in the side a few weeks now. He shores up that defence. We know that. Can they hold up against Hawkins and Cameron? I don't think Lever goes to a Cameron. Lever actually plays on a mid-sized player and looks to drop off a bit more. So
Cameron's a very tough matchup because he's got the engine.
Yep.
He's got all the marking ability. He's got so much. Just going back to your ladder position, if they win, the percentage as it stands is I think 139 to 135. So they've got a chunk to make up, but nothing that can't be erased over the next few weeks if required. So Isaac Smith's 250th game, and you've been strong on the fact that Geelong are a club that lift for their milestone men.
Big game for Isaac Smith coming. You watch. If you want to watch something on tonight, Thursday night, and you want something of interest, watch Geelong, how they treat Isaac Smith. I guarantee you they'll be going out of their way to get him involved in the game. So he's going to kick, I think he'll kick 2, have close to 25 touches, Skeet. I think he'll have a big game. Happy with that? You're just mentally noting those for the punt on the weekend? Or
more importantly, I'd like to know who's winning the game from your perspective.
Geelong in Geelong. Which will be a very big win because I still think Melbourne's the best side in the comp by a fair margin. I think Melbourne are the better team in the competition, beat anyone, but Geelong in Geelong for mine. You?
And this was played, how far away is the MCG? 80 Ks, 100 Ks?
Yeah, it's not about the drive.
No, I'm talking about how far away is the MCG from Geelong.
Yeah, 100 Ks, yes.
Yeah, so 100 Ks away this game's played at the MCG.
Yes.
Melbourne,
I pick Melbourne every day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's the difference between me picking Geelong, which I have as well.
Yeah.
I think they just play the game ground so well. I mean, the Dockers beaten this year, but they're few and far between.
Sydney v Western Bulldogs. We both picked Geelong. You watch Melbourne win. Sydney, Western Bulldogs, Friday night at the SCG. This is a good game, just because both sides are about the same level at the moment. Both have the potential to, beat most sides when they're on, but when they're off, they could pretty much lose to anyone as well, because been both of these teams' season is potential great, haven't lived up to that potential, and they're both in the same bracket there.
No question. And I was disappointed with Sydney last week. I mean, they seemed to have the game under control against Essendon. I watched the first quarter, and I think they had 5 goals to 2.
Yep.
But they just didn't finish off the match. And John Longmire must be absolutely frustrated and just unable to get his finger on why this team, you're a big fan of the Sydney Swans and what they bring to the table. Yeah, they can't win the flag.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to turn things around very quickly. I don't know. I think I can't really put my finger on the pulse why they can't win the flag, because they tick a lot of boxes. Like their forward line is dangerous. They have goal kickers there. Their midfield, I think, may be the problem a little bit. Mills has been down on form. He's their best midfielder when he's up and going, and he hasn't been playing as well as he could have been. They got Luke Parker in there. He played his 250th last week. He's a good player, but do they have that game breaker in there? Do they have that Oliver, that Dangerfield, if you want to use him?
Well, Heaney was a guy that I thought could be that.
He's done this the last 3 or 4 years. Comes out, he's kicking 5 goals in the game. He looks like the greatest player to ever play. I haven't mentioned his name in 6 weeks. Where's he gone? I haven't seen him at all. Tim English comes back into the side after concussion. He's missed 2 weeks, so that's his second bout of concussion this year, which is always dangerous on those repeat head knocks. So we wish him the best. But him coming back into the team against Tom Hickey, a former teammate of mine. Tom Hickey's story is great. He's gone over to Sydney. He's had twins over there, and he's playing the footy of his life. He plays a big picture of how Sydney goes. I think he's competitive element, inside the contest once the ball hits the ground is probably similar to Tim English. Tim English has turned himself into that sort of midfield roaming ruckman. So that's a big clash, English v Hickey. I don't know who to pick, and I don't know who wins.
Well, I think Sydney, for me, it's a bit like Geelong. The SCG form, it's a bit like Brisbane at the Gabba. Sydney not so dominant at the SCG in recent times, but I'm not sure about the Bulldogs. I think they've fired their best shot. I'm not sure. I mean, they lose this, I think they're officially gone for the year.
This is the last time I pick Sydney. If Sydney lose and I've picked them, last time I pick them all year. I'm not picking them again.
Hang on a sec. You just given us the greatest talk up about how you think they have all the bones and all the structure to be a contender.
And I've picked them. But if they lose,
you're off.
I'm off the bandwagon. Mark this point right here. I'm off the bandwagon if they put a terrible performance together. So we're both picking Sydney.
Yeah, you're fickle, though. Jeez.
Fickle. Oh, please. Port Adelaide, done and dust. Who else? Essendon, the worst team in the competition, come and beat my team, Sydney. Anyway, Collingwood v North Melbourne.
You might waste too much time. But Darcy Moore might play. I'm not sure he will. But why would you waste any element of danger of him injuring his knee any further, or just give him a rest? I know North Melbourne, that sounds a bit arrogant if you know.
No. Don't play him. Do not play him.
No.
He's been cleared of any ACL damage, but it's also a knee injury of some description. It looked like he had injured it.
Bigger fish to fry.
He's not playing. Jeremy Howe might come back, so he's missed a couple of weeks with stomach illness. Jason Horne-Francis back from suspension.
Well, so wouldn't he come straight back into the side?
Why would he go through the VFL?
I have no idea.
Apparently that's what's happening.
That can't be the case. He can't have your number one draft pick, who has, it's not like he hasn't shown that he can play the game this year.
Can he leave at the end of this season?
I thought it was a 2-year deal initially that was in place for draftees. Now I stand corrected.
I think it's a minimum 2-year contract.
Yeah,
but could you get traded though? You can get I don't know, but he'd be seriously considering it.
We get hold of Belly, and that's Gavin Bell or Peter Bell. He might be able to give us the info on that.
Whether or not Jason Horne-Francis can leave the club. Collingwood will win this, won't he? Won't they?
Put it away. I'm not sure if percentage means much to them at the moment, but they need to win by 10 plus goals.
They've won almost 6 in a row, I think now.
They've won 6. They can win 10 in a row.
Yeah,
Scully potentially, which puts them in the mix for top 4.
They will finish top 4 if they continue to win, which is, I think, incredible.
It's a great story, and people can bag Collingwood. I gained a lot of respect for Collingwood after their grand final loss to you.
Yep,
the way they handled defeat, which would have been gut-wrenching. Nathan Buckley, Eddie Maguire. I thought they, as a club, were, and this can be cheeky and say, look, they used to losing grand finals, but I thought they were outstanding as a football club in that very tough moment.
Yeah, I agree. Eddie McGuire was in the rooms before families were into the West Coast rooms.
And you know how I know there's a bit of theatre with that, perhaps, but when you love your footy like him, I'm saying, and his club like him, to walk in there and say, "Well played," that for me, mark of a great man.
Yep, correct. Collingwood will win that easily. Gold Coast v Richmond Metricon. I think this is a really, really interesting matchup because Richmond. I put them with Geelong. I wrote them. I said they're done. They're over the hill. They're dusted. Well, I'll tell you what, they're back in the big game at the moment. Dustin Martin will miss with a little hammy, maybe. It was sort of weird what's going on there. He's rumoured to not be at the club next year.
Well, he was very talkative to the media the other day when Mitch Cleary went. All he had to say is going. Now,
hang on, hold your thought.
Okay.
We got this later on in the show. Okay.
Okay. So, anyway,
but he's been rumoured to go into Sydney. Well, that's growing momentum that Dustin Martin won't be playing at Richmond.
He must enjoy whether it's the anonymity that's attached to Sydney,
which would be true.
The lifestyle,
that would
perhaps
be very
as well.
True.
So who knows? But Damien Hardwick's given him his blessing, by the way, as we know. To say, look, if he decides to leave, he's repaid us in spades. So he won't play. Nick Vlosten accepted his one match, as he should have. Suspension for hitting Robbie Connor West. Yeah, it was. I thought it was easily won. Anyway, so he cops his whack, and that's a big blow for the Tigers.
How's this little Charlie special for you Thursday morning, evening, whenever you're listening? Richmond sitting in 7th. Teams in 7th are 14-1 for the season, Skeet. So it doesn't matter who it is. Whoever's in 7th coming into the weekend, they win every game other than one. Does that make sense?
It does now.
It looks like you're trying to wrap your head around it.
No, I've got it now.
If you're in 7th at the start of the round, you win.
You win.
Unless the one. I don't know.
And of course, I won't.
Who have you picked? Gold Coast. Yes. I'm picking Richmond. On the back of that, I'm picking Richmond.
Yeah, this is stuff. This is an ambush by Charlie and Scully because I didn't know that stupid stat, and now I'm a bit cooked over that.
It's all luck. That has nothing to do with anything.
Well, if it's all luck, I'm like George Costanza. I mean, I could fall into a barrel full of nipples and come out sucking my thumb when it comes to luck with footy tipping. Never, ever on my side. I've tipped the Gold Coast Suns. They should have beaten Collingwood last week. They get rolled. I'm sticking with them. Mind you, here's a stat. Richmond, I think, have won their past 11 games or thereabouts at Metricon Stadium because of the hub situation. They played a lot of footy there.
And you've picked Gold Coast on the back of all that.
No, on the back of Stuart Dew.
Yes.
And I think that will... I don't know. I've tipped Isaac Rankine, I think, is a gun. And I just think that hopefully they can... they're pretty good up there. They're at the very least, they're very competitive, the Suns up there.
Richmond are playing their way at the moment. They've got the knock-on, hit-on. It suits Gold Coast. That's why they won so much on the Gold Coast. I think Richmond it's a scrappy game because it's so wet and it doesn't need to be raining to be wet.
It's a day game and the sun is going to be shining. So but I'm just saying, I agree totally with you.
Yeah.
But you're right. Mind you, they kicked a score last week against the Eagles, didn't they? And it was dry at the MCG.
Yeah. It doesn't stop them from playing. I'm just saying when it does turn into that scrappy solid play.
It totally suits them.
It's Richmond, right? So I'm picking Richmond, you pick Gold Coast. It's good to have something different for the weekend. Port Adelaide v GWS Saturday at Adelaide Oval Saturday evening. I think this is another interesting matchup. None of these are blockbusters, but Port Adelaide v GWS, again, probably like the Bulldogs and Sydney, they've had sort of similar years. GWS were really slow to get out of the blocks. Port Adelaide, of course, lost their first 5, and they're fighting against it to scrap together a season. Mate, can they make the 8?
No,
probably not.
No.
Either of them?
No, definitely not. No. The Giants.
I'm just asking.
I'm
just asking.
The Giants.
I'm just asking.
Let me just have a quick squiz.
Yeah.
The Giants go. I'll tell you why they can't, because they currently are in 13th position. They've got 20 points next to their name. They're 4 games outside the 8, you knucklehead.
There's 5 games left.
Right. Mathematically. Yeah.
There's a chance.
Show me there's a chance. Look, I thought Port Adelaide, in all honesty, they're probably the best team outside the 8. I think.
Are they?
I think they are, because I mean, their form. I thought they were very good against Fremantle. I thought they came back in the last quarter. I just think they've got a side. The 0-5 has just killed them. So that they're winning this game, I think, against GWS.
They've won 7 on the season. They're 2
7
games
past 10.
They're 2 games out of the 8.
Yeah,
Can they play finals?
No, they can't. No.
I think it's a tough ask too. I mean, it's round.
I think they've lost to Fremantle. They couldn't have a wrong foot take place, if that makes sense.
No, not absolutely not at all.
Couldn't have a wrong move. I don't know what it is.
Sorry, Lee Spur in the studio for a couple of minutes.
They couldn't afford any banana peels, and that's what they got against the Dockers.
Okay.
Look, they win though on Saturday night.
I'm surprised that Robbie Gray couldn't get that kick that goal. That's Robbie Gray.
That's him all over.
Which is like saying LeBron James can, you remember the ones he has
Todd
done.
Marshall. I mean,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have put them in front, but it would have made the last 2 minutes pretty riveting.
Correct. Who are you picking?
Yeah, Port Adelaide.
Yeah, I'll take Port too. I've already got you done and dusted in the Richmond game. Brisbane v...
And I'll get a text at 4 o'clock and little stupid emoji with it.
Brisbane v Essendon. Oh, I look forward to what stupid emoji you pick. Do you even know what an emoji is? Seriously.
I've got that. I've got that covered.
Very good. This is Sunday game. It's an early game at the Gabba. I see Brisbane possibly winning this game by 10 to 15 goals. I don't rate Essendon's comeback and their rejuvenation after the West Coast game. I saw enough with you here in Perth to know that they're not a good team. And for Sydney to lose to them last week, I don't know how that happened. And Brisbane is a much better side at home, will dominate Essendon this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're probably right on the money with the margin as well. I think they could make a mess of the Bombers, and Brisbane are building. We know, though, that they've got Zorko and Rich will miss. Well, you'd think Rich, if they're hamstrings, we're looking at 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 minimum probably. So they won't get back till just before the finals. Devon Robertson, interesting with them, WA kid, whether he'll get targeted by either the Fremantle Dockers or West Coast at the end of the season, just depending on how he's tracking.
Because he got dropped, didn't he?
Yeah, got dropped. And Andrew McGrath ready to return for the Bombers. Look, good win. You've got to give them credit, Essendon, for their victory over Sydney. But I agree with you. I thought that was just an aberration. I think, it could get, if it's 11:10 Sunday, which is middle of the day in Brisbane, haven't looked at the forecast, but if it's a fine, fast track, it'll be a high-scoring game, and Essendon could get absolutely pantsed.
The way Essendon does actually make a contest of this, though, is playing that aggressive, exciting footy like that, and they have that in their kit bag. I really think Rutten tried to drum it out of them with this blue-collar stuff at the start of the year. And so the playing group looks confused. Oh, they want to defend. They want to work hard to defend as a team. That they should just be this blitzing, all-out attack all the time type. Richmond are a little bit. They've got their defence down packed a little bit more. But a Richmond type, where they just get it and they go and they handball and it's just mayhem. That's what Essendon should be.
They were a bit like that against the Eagles.
Yeah,
they defensively, when they turned it over, they got carved up. So, by the way, 18 degrees, sunshine at the Gabba. So if you're inclined to have a look, I think points will be quite high in that game, just for what it's worth.
Are you a big weather man? You seem to know what the weather's doing all the time. It's just like it's something that doesn't really come. Like my mum rings me all the time, says, weather in Perth tomorrow is going to be good. I'm like, Mum, what are you talking about? I don't check the weather, but it seems like you do.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, when I'm going to the Melbourne Cup, for instance, I always look to see what the derby, just so that it's not going to be feral. I don't know, you're right. I do like to check. Even when I go to Bali, I go, what's it going to be like Bali? You get there, it says thunderstorm, thunderstorm, thunderstorm. You get up there, it's blue skies. You think, oh, well, that was good. I wasted 2 hours this week looking at the weather.
Oh, very good. Packing your bag. I might put the trackies in for Bali. Oh, boy. We're off track here. Hawthorn v Adelaide. I think this is the last game that we're going to look at. Sunday, 1:20 Marvel Stadium. I do like all these matchups because I find
pretty even.
Yeah, I find them hard to pick. Adelaide, Hawthorn, similar positions on the ladder, similar seasons. They've beaten some okay sides. They've played well against good teams, both of these sides. But when they come up against each other, I think this is a game Hawthorn can win, and I'm going to pick Hawthorn off the top. I think they are your typical side that new coach. They've clearly bought into the system Sam Mitchell's putting together, and you probably can say the same thing about Adelaide under Nicks. But Sam Mitchell, I think, will have them up and going for this game. It's a winnable game for them, and I think they'll win it, and maybe quite easily, to be honest. 6-goal win for Hawthorn. I'm picking.
Yeah, Marvel Stadium. I think again high scoring game. Adelaide have had their moments. They were competitive against Melbourne. They've done some nice things. They're probably best win going back, trying to think. They won the showdown earlier in the year, which was quite emotional after the siren. But, yeah, they're a fair way off. I actually quite like Hawthorn.
Yep.
But let's be honest, they haven't won for a while.
No.
And so, their inconsistencies within matches is what would be not causing concern for Sam Mitchell. He knows exactly what he's got at his disposal. But Mitch Lewis Again, just keep an eye on how he tracks and see what he delivers this weekend. I think he could have a day out.
Good player, Mitch Lewis. An interesting one out of these games is Matt Crouch. So he's been dropped back to the sample for a few weeks now. He's had 42 touches on the weekend, 11 clearances and 2 goals. Still can't find his way into the team. Team selection still to happen, of course, this evening. But if you're Matt Crouch, are you just out of there? Are you packing your bags and getting out of there, or are you?
Is this a Bryce Gibbs type thing? Is it
lessons learnt? I don't know. Or why aren't you playing him?
Don't know.
It must be his defensive element.
It has to be.
He can win the footy. We know he can win the footy.
He gets the footy, but isn't that why they recruited him? They must have known.
Yeah,
Matt Crouch when he's been in the system now to go. Well, this is what he's good at. This is what he's not. So I don't know why.
He'd be a good addition to a few teams around the league. North Melbourne being one of those. They probably could do with someone who could win the footy inside. I don't know.
Just win the footy, full stop. Yeah.
They do have it. We bagged North Melbourne a little bit on this.
Yeah, no, but they need help.
Yeah.
Whether it's a different argument, but priority picks, who knows? They need assistance because the equity of the AFL generally works, but with North Melbourne, at the moment, it just looks like a bit Fitzroyish to me.
Yeah, which is sad. Hawthorn, Adelaide, who are you picking?
Hawthorn.
I'm taking Hawthorn.
Yes, I'm taking Hawthorn in Marvel Stadium, yes.
Okay, very good. That's it. That's the round. Done and dusted. Game of the weekend to watch. Pretty obvious this one.
Tonight.
Melbourne Geelong. What are you going to be set up with? A couple of shelters?
No, I'm off. I'm dry July, so I'm just still working my way through that. But if I was, I'll be having one of these. Okay. Doing a bit of radio work, then I'll go home, and my wife's working tonight, so we'll go and watch the footy in my peace and quiet with my puppy dog by my side, and just watch the last half. Should be a beauty. Looking, when you look at the schedule and you go, yeah, can't wait for this. This is an exciting game. This is a match that you think, well, could easily be September.
Yep. Finals footy.
Exactly.
Yep, very good. All right, we're going to finish off on this one, but before we get there, we are with Mark Rennings, Will Schofield on the Shelter FootyCast. Pardon the interruption, get into it. We've got 3 to get through here. I'm going to say a statement. You're going to take a side, Skeet. Now, last week you started ranting on both sides and giving us arguments for both. I just want you to pick a side. Is that all right? Can I get it?
Yes, Scully. Yes.
Just a yes or a no.
Been living with women for too long, just changing my mind.
Just a yes or a no. You're a great adjudicator there, Mark. Alistair Clarkson should be the next coach of the GWS.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Why?
Well, because he's the best credentialed coach out there who's not in employment at the moment.
Okay.
If you've got the choice, you take Alistair Clarkson. I mean, you can look at his last few years at Hawthorn, but his numbers suggest that and with a team that's not rebuilding, this Giants team needs some tinkering, but it doesn't need to be stripped back like, say, North Melbourne.
I think what McVeigh has done puts his hand right up there. I think bringing in a Clarkson, does Clarkson stay there for 8 years? Like, are you going to get a long-term coach in Alistair Clarkson? I don't think you are. I think he's looking for a 5-year in, out, premiership, see you later.
Who cares if that's what happens?
Yeah, no, that might be a good point. But I think what McVeigh's done to this side has changed the way it looks. Now, they haven't had, they haven't gone undefeated since he started as coach, but he has relationships with the players, which is incredibly important. And I think getting more and more important for coaches at the AFL is the
relationships. You're right.
Yeah, so he has those at the club. You bring Clarkson in, they're going to start again. It's a restart. Are GWS at the stage they need a restart? I don't think so, but you do apparently.
Well, I can tell you now, and you'll agree with this, even though you want to disagree. You'll agree with this. If Alistair Clarkson is the target for the Giants,
yes,
and he says, look, he will take the job, and the Giants, if they've got a choice right now, he's their man. Has to be.
No, it's McVeigh, I think.
You think Giants management, if they've got the choice right now, would choose McVeigh against Clarkson?
It's too short term. It's a short term thing with Clarkson, and I think.
Well, you're saying 5 years.
Maybe not even 5 years. You'd be lucky for 5 years with Clarkson. I reckon he just wants a bit of money, maybe a flag. See you later. What does that leave?
Move on to another club?
Oh no, see you later. On his horse into the sunset.
Okay, so you don't think Alistair Clarkson, if he comes back, will be coming back for the right reasons?
That's correct. The league,
wow, that's a big call.
The league,
that might make headlines elsewhere.
No. Oh, well, what do you think? Well,
hang on. You're saying that a coach of his acumen just wants to come back for a money grab and nick off.
Well, what does he want to come back?
He wants to come back for a premiership.
He's done that though. He's won premierships. I don't think it's a bad thing that he's coming back for a bit of a short term. What's he coming back for? He's won premierships. He's
Why do we all keep working to try? I mean, you want to try and be successful.
Money, mate.
Yeah, fair call.
Well, if I give you $10 million right now, what do you get? You coming into the shelter FootyCast, eh?
Wouldn't miss it for the world, Scully. I mean, just get my shelter, get my bottle of water. It used to be big bottles of water. Then now down to the Qantas, the Jetstar size water.
Just piss off, mate. The league should intervene at North Melbourne.
Yes, has to. They have to, because if they're able to stand up and say, we've given the Giants, the Gold Coast Suns, and the support they've handed them over the years, and we've all sort of accepted that as being part of the rebuilding and expansion of the AFL, the North Melbourne is a club that needs, if not intervention, some guiding hands from the AFL to make sure they get, when I say the next coach right, they get everything in place right, given that David Noble's questionable position at the club. They need to help them become more than just a laughing stock of the AFL, which they are at the moment.
I can argue black and blue about almost anything in my entire life. I agree with you. I can't say no. It's a yes for mine as well. North Melbourne need intervention because they haven't been able to sort it out themselves. Let's do this last one. Players need to make themselves more accessible to the media. Now, this is on the back of Dusty Martin's doorstop. So, you're in the media?
Yeah.
So am I.
But I would have suggested that, and you've seen the vision of Mitch Cleary, that how hard is it? And I know Dusty's not a media person per se. I remember going to Eagles training, and of course the trick back then, if it was Daniel Kerr or someone who didn't want to speak to you, it'd be they just walk to their car with their phone on their ear and pretending they're talking, which of course they weren't. So I get it all. How hard is it to say, oh mate, not sure yet, later in the week we'll find out? I mean, how hard is that to do that? I don't get when you say intrusion, Nathan Buckley saying, it's offensive and intrusive. I mean, turn it up.
Well, but how hard is it to not be there in the first place? Like, what is that grab? Like, so I haven't been in TV land, which is Cleary hasn't gone down there off his own. No. Channel 7 has said, go down there, get a grab.
Get some vision at the very least.
Get some vision. What is that actually giving people? I would argue, what is...
So okay, I'll tell you why.
Okay, but so what is Mitch Cleary going, oh, Dusty, whatever the hell he asked him, and Dusty going, oh, no idea, mate. What does that give anyone?
No, but what you're forgetting is if we all just said that about every injury footballer that's high profile, you wouldn't go down and try and see if Nick Nat's got something to say. What if he stopped to Channel 9 and Channel 7 wasn't there, for instance, and said to the reporter there, Clint Stanaway, for instance, look, not great. I wish it was, these hamstrings are giving me a bit of issue, and spoke to him for 2 or 3 minutes. Your boss would give you the greatest reaming of all time. So you're right in terms of what the end result was. Why did you go down there? Because Dusty very rarely speaks. But
I don't think Channel 9 should be down there either. That's what my counter argument to that is. Like, just let him go and get the scans, and then we've bred this culture of like, you got to get the grab and you got to get him and you got to,
But put it this way. TV's a visual medium, so to keep running the injury or him sitting on the bench, you like some fresh vision, and that's of Dusty coming out of the scan or going into a scan. I mean, we've done it with Michael Walters down the road here. Difference is, Son comes out, say, Sonny, just give us a word, chats to you for maybe 90 seconds, tells you absolutely zip, but gives you what you want. I don't think it's that complicated, Scully.
I would say...
And you would do it.
Yeah, I would say it's on the clubs a bit as well as the players. So I don't like the culture of door stopping. I don't like that. Let's park that. That's not 100% media's fault, because I do understand the visual element. I do understand all that. It's on the players and the clubs as well. The accessibility of AFL players is not good enough. I will say that. Absolutely.
And they want a new broadcasting rights deal that's going to give them some extra coin.
Given my time in the game, given that I had a media interest, I made myself available. If anyone ever called, it doesn't matter who it was, I was like, yep, no worries.
You're like Carl Langdon. Yeah. And you know what? I've got great empathy for blokes that come out of the footy, and they've worked on that element, which you did and which Carl did over the journey. And think, you know what? They've actually seen what's afterwards. And don't get me wrong, some players have no interest in going to the media. I get that.
Which is fine, but you are paid a lot of money, and the media, that's how you paid the money, is broadcasting rights and visual and people. So you need to make yourself available. But I don't think the culture of door stopping is that's not where the availability argument is, in my opinion. It's during the week. It's media and communication teams at football clubs that need to work, get more progressive. I do a podcast, make players available for that. Don't have me, hunting around trying to backdoor. Look, you should be able to go through the clubs and at most stages of the week hey, I want to speak to Dustin Martin about his hamstring. Now, you don't want 20 people asking for that, but if you do have 20 people, put a press conference on for 5 minutes. It's not that hard.
The alternative is, Scully, because Dusty's not great, doesn't feel comfortable in that environment, get for instance, your Richmond media team together, say, Dusty, going to grab you for 5 minutes.
Socials.
You record it, as in the club records it.
Yeah.
Dustin, how you going? 3 minutes, boys, 7, 9, 10, ABC, and everyone else.
Grabs.
Here's what you need. I know it's not perfect. Tell you what, they'll be using that vision and that audio.
Yeah, correct.
The other thing, just quickly before
people
we finish,
want insight.
Of course they do. And briefly, what does change with those walk-ins and walk-outs is player-journalist relationships, which are now almost non-existent because you don't get that interaction. But if I've known you socially, which you used to do, whether it was John Worsfold or whoever it was coming in and out of the Eagles, there's Skeet, or I know him, or don't like him or like him, that is where sometimes you'll say, I'll stop with you for 2 secs. The relationship that players can have with journalists might just change how that unfolds.
I think that's all fixed by access and increased access and more
trust.
insight. And exactly right. Trust. So, I think you need to stop the doorstop though. If we go back on that, I think there's no place in. There's no reason for it.
There's great vision to be had. Remember Tony Lockett throwing crutches at Eddie Mackay? They're great visual things. Don't worry about it, Sco. It's all theatre.
I'm pretty sure one of the West Coast boys got caught on microphone calling the media pack outside a bunch of vultures. You remember that back in the day?
Probably, fair enough.
Yeah, like fucking bunch of vultures or something. And it got played on the news that night. And I remember being in the team meeting the next day, because they couldn't figure out who it was. A big pack of us. I used to go for a big walk, and all the media used to hang around by the cars. And anyway. Get rid of it. Get it out of the game. We've gone too long. We've carried on. Absolute shock and awe on that. If you want to get in touch with us, follow us on socials, Shelter FootyCast, or send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. If you see anything over the weekend in regional footy and you'd like a slab of shelters,
get in touch.
Skeet's not drinking them at the moment. We've got some to give away.
I'm in a good mood about it as well.
We need you to email us, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us on podcasts. Skeet's going to get stuck right into the Jats crackers. No shelters for him. He's on dry July, but I'll take your share, mate, tonight.
And the tipping, may the mighty Gold Coast Suns do me a favour.
May the most luck win.